My husband forced me to swallow my mother-in-law's disgusting food while she spits mine because I am not a good cook. A party brought her back down to earth. My mother-in-law's cooking is horrible. That is not me being cruel. It is a fact anyone with a working mouth would confirm. She oversalts everything until it burns your throat. She chars the outside and leaves the middle raw. And she combines things that should never touch, like fish and something sweet, in the same dish. From the first month I married her son, she cooked for us constantly, and my husband made one rule. I had to eat all of it, and I had to tell her it was delicious. He said, "My mother cooked for you with love. You will clean your plate and you will thank her, every time." The portions she gave me were enormous, always bigger than his. She would sit across the table and watch me eat, waiting. If I slowed down, she would say, "You do not like it? What is wrong with it?" So I choked it down while she stared, and I said it was delicious, because if I did not, Quintillian would go cold for days. The food made me sick more than once. I would finish a full plate of her greasy, oversalted cooking and be on the bathroom floor an hour later, and Quintillian would tell me I had a weak stomach and that his mother's food was perfect. Karen agreed. She said, "Nobody else complains. Maybe you were just not raised with good food." Meanwhile, she picked apart everything I ever made. If I cooked dinner, she would take one bite, set her fork down, and say, "Bland, no love in it." My son is used to real cooking. Once she spit a mouthful of my rice into her napkin and left it beside her plate for the rest of the meal like evidence. Quintillian pushed my plate away and asked his mother to cook instead. So I stopped cooking. I ate hers, praised it, and got sick over and over, because that was the rule. This went on for years. Every meal, the same thing. A mountain of terrible food on my plate, the two of them watching, me calling it the best thing I had ever tasted. One time I left a spoonful of raw in the middle chicken on the side, and Karen noticed immediately and said, "So one bite is too much for you now?" Quintillian made me finish it after it had gone cold. Another night she piled a second serving on before I finished the first and said, "A thin wife shames the husband. Eat." And he nodded like it was wisdom. If I asked for less, she took it as an insult and would not speak all evening. And Quintillian blamed me for the silence. She loved that line about me finishing everything. She would smile and say, "See, my daughter-in-law cannot get enough. She finishes every bite." She started using me as proof. Whenever anyone questioned her cooking, she said, "My daughter-in-law is very particular, and even she licks the plate clean." Quintillian backed it up, telling his friends his mother was the finest cook he knew. All that praise, the praise they forced out of me, went straight to her head. She decided her cooking was so good that she should sell it. A neighbor named Aiden was throwing a large party, over 100 people, and Karen offered to cater the whole thing for a price. Quintillian was so proud. He gave her money for the ingredients and the pots and told everyone his mother was catering a major event now. I tried to warn them. I said she should let outsiders taste it first, people who would be honest. Quintillian said, "You are jealous of my mother's success. You just cannot stand that she is good at something." Karen said, "You want me to fail because you cannot cook yourself." So I stopped talking. I let them go ahead, exactly the way they wanted. She cooked for 2 days. The same food, burnt, raw in the middle, drowning in salt, that strange sweet fish. Quintillian drove it over, telling me the whole way that I would finally see how wrong I was. 100 real people, none of them married into anything, none of them afraid of my husband going cold, none of them required to say one kind word. They took one bite and stopped, plates piled up, barely touched. Aiden came looking for Karen and said guests were spitting it into napkins, that a few felt ill, that there was nothing on the table anyone could eat. Karen told him the guests had no taste. He did not care about their palates. He had sent someone out for fast food to feed his own party, and he wanted his money back, and he told her plainly the food was not fit to serve. Quintillian stood there and watched strangers scrape his mother's cooking into a trash bag, and there was no wife to blame in that room, because I was not even there. It was just her food, and 100 honest mouths. They lost every dollar he put into it. Karen cried and said everyone was against her. Quintillian came home silent. I let the silence sit. For once, I was not the one choking something down. Those 2 days were the quietest our house had been since I married him. No calls from Karen saying she was coming over with containers, just quiet, and for the first time it was not a punishment. It was a break. I went to the store and bought vegetables I actually liked. Chicken I could season myself, rice without a cup of salt dumped into it. I cooked for myself at my own stove that evening, and when I took the first bite I almost cried, because it tasted good and nobody was watching me eat it. Quintillian walked in, looked at my plate, said nothing, made a sandwich, and left the room. On the third morning he sat down across from me with both hands flat on the table, the way he does when he has rehearsed something. He said, "You know what your problem is? You could have helped her. You knew that food was for 100 people and you let her do it alone. You wanted her to fail." I set my mug down slowly because my hand wanted to shake and I would not let it. I said, "I wanted her to fail? I told you both to let outsiders taste it first. You called me jealous." He waved his hand like he was swatting a fly. "You should have tried harder to help." And I felt the old words rising, the safe ones. "You are right. I am sorry. I will fix it." They sat on my tongue because that was what I had trained myself to do. Apologize. Swallow it down exactly the way I swallowed the food. But I remembered the bathroom floor at 2 in the morning after her fish, Quintillian in the doorway telling me I was weak. I remembered the cold chicken with the raw center, and the words died. I said, "No, I am done apologizing for things I did not do." His face went hard, like a door closing. He said, "My mother is heartbroken. You will go see her today, and you will make her feel better." Not a request, an order. I said, "I will go see her, but I will not lie to her." He looked at me like I was speaking another language, because in his mind visiting Karen and lying to Karen had always been the same act. He grabbed his keys and said, "Just be nice," and left for work. I called Jillian and told her everything. The rule, the portions, the nights I was sick, the raw chicken, the way Quintillian went cold if I did not perform. She was quiet the whole time. Then she said, "How long? Why did you never tell me?" Her voice was not angry at me. It was angry for me, and I could hear the difference. I said, "Because I thought I was the problem." Karen said nobody else complained. Quintillian said my stomach was weak. They both said I was not raised with good food. Hear it long enough and you believe it. It took 100 strangers spitting her cooking into napkins to show me that I was never the problem. Jillian said, "You are going to that woman's house today, and I am coming with you." She did not ask. She told me. We pulled up around noon, to the house I had walked into 100 times with a performance ready. Today my stomach was empty and my mouth was not rehearsed. The door opened fast, like Karen had been standing behind it. Her eyes were red and swollen, her nose raw. She threw her arms around me before I could speak, and I could smell the cooking oil and burnt spice in her clothes. "Thank God you are here," she said into my shoulder. "Nobody understands me like you do. You know my food is good. Tell her." She pointed at Jillian like a stranger who had wandered onto the property, then pulled me inside by the wrist, still talking over me the way she always did. "I have been on the phone all morning with Aiden. He is telling the whole neighborhood I made his guests sick. He wants to ruin me." She grabbed my arm with both hands, tight, the way someone grabs you when they are drowning. "You have to call him. Call Aiden and tell him my food is fine. You eat it every week. You always ask for seconds. Tell him that." And there it was. She believed it. She genuinely believed that all those years of me cleaning my plate and saying delicious were real. She had built her whole idea of herself on my forced smiles, and now she needed me to unsay the truth. I hesitated. She was crying. She was an older woman at her own counter asking me for help, and every part of me trained to keep the peace wanted to say yes, I will call him. One more lie and everything goes back. She squeezed harder. "If you do not defend me, everyone will think I am a fraud. Please. You are the only one who can fix this." I looked at Jillian. She gave me one small shake of her head. Barely a movement, but it was enough. I pulled my arm gently out of her grip and said, "Karen, I cannot call Aiden and tell him your food is fine." The crying stopped, not slowed. Stopped, like a switch. Her face changed, the softness gone, tears still wet on her cheeks, but her eyes sharp now. "What?" I held her stare. My heart was pounding, but my voice came out level. "Because it is not fine. It never was." The room went dead silent. Karen pulled back from me like I had burned her. Her mouth opened and closed without sound, and for 1 second I saw something behind her eyes that looked like recognition. Then it was gone. Her voice dropped low and sharp, a voice she saved for people who were not family. "Get out of my house." Jillian stepped forward. "She is trying to help you. Nobody else is going to tell you this." Karen did not even look at her. She pointed at the door with a shaking hand. "Both of you. And when my son hears about this, you will be sorry." I walked out of that house for the first time in my life without saying thank you, without complimenting a meal, and the air outside felt clean. My phone was buzzing before I had my seatbelt on. 12 calls by the time I reached my driveway. I answered none. Quintillian came home hard, keys hitting the counter. "You went to my mother's house and told her that her food is bad, after everything she has done for you?" That voice used to make me shrink, used to send me hunting for the version of sorry that would end it fastest. Not anymore. I said, "Everything she has done to me, Quintillian, there is a difference." He shook his head. "You are being cruel to an old woman who loves you." I said, "She does not love me. She loves watching me eat." He flinched, small, just a tightening around the eyes, but I saw it, because he had been at that table every single time. He had watched her track every bite I took like it was a sport, and he had called it love because that was easier than calling it what it was. He recovered fast. He always did. He crossed his arms. "If you do not apologize to my mother by tomorrow, I am telling the entire family what you said. Everyone will know what kind of wife you are." There it was, the same tool, just larger. Before it was, "I will go cold for days." Now it was, "I will turn them all against you." But something had shifted in me the moment 100 strangers spit out the food I had been swallowing for years. I wanted them to know. I said, "Good, tell them. And while you are at it, tell them about the raw chicken you made me eat cold. Tell them about the night I threw up for 2 hours after her fish. Tell them everything." His mouth opened, then closed. He uncrossed his arms and put a hand on the back of a chair, because his threat only worked if I was afraid of the truth getting out. He could not tell my story without telling on himself, and he had just realized it. He sat down. His shoulders dropped and his voice went soft. "Look, my mother is getting older. She does not have much. Cooking is the one thing that makes her feel useful. Can you not just let her have that?" And that one landed. Angry Quintillian I could handle. Threatening Quintillian I had already beaten. But the reasonable one, the sad one who made it about a lonely woman who only wanted to feel needed, that was the version that always got me. I almost said, maybe I was too harsh. Then I finished the sentence honestly. Letting Karen have this meant going back to that table and smiling while my stomach turned. That was not letting her have something. That was giving myself away. I said, "Cooking matters to her. I understand that. But forcing me to lie about it and making me sick is not love. Not from her, and not from you." He stared at me a long moment, looking for the crack. He did not find one. He took his keys and left, and he did not come home that night. Jillian called in the morning before I had finished my coffee. "He is building a case against you. He posted in the family group chat last night. He told everyone you went to Karen's house and insulted her cooking and made her cry. He wrote it like you attacked her." His cousin showed me. Of course his version left out the raw chicken and the vomiting and the years of being graded at a dinner table. His version was my wife made my mother cry, and every aunt and uncle was reading it. I had never once gone around Quintillian to speak to his family. He was always the filter. But if he was going to hand them a lie, I was going to hand them the truth. Not the aunts. They would side with Karen no matter what. There was one person I respected, Marcella, his older cousin, who said what she thought whether you wanted it or not. And at every dinner I had ever attended, Marcella never cleaned her plate either. She moved the food around. She cut it small. She never finished. I called her and told her all of it. She listened without interrupting once. When I finished, she said, "I always thought something was off at those dinners. You smiled too hard." I had to steady myself against the counter, because she had seen it, all those years of performing, and she had seen the smile that was too big. She was quiet a second, then said, "The family is eating at Karen's this Saturday. Let her cook. But this time everyone eats for real. No small bites, no leaving early, and we see what happens." I said yes. Quintillian had spent years making me the only mouth she needed to convince, and now there would be a table full of honest ones. On Thursday, he announced the dinner like it was his own peace offering. "My mother is cooking for the family on Saturday. You will be there, and you will behave." He had no idea Marcella had arranged it. I said, "I will be there," and I watched satisfaction cross his face, because in his head there was only one version of me at that table, the one who cleaned her plate and made his mother beam. Friday night, Marcella called. I told a few of the cousins to actually eat the food this time. Then she laughed. One of them admitted she throws it in the trash every visit and eats her own leftovers in the car afterward. I laughed out loud, the first real laugh in weeks. All those years I thought I was the only one. Marcella's voice softened. "You are not alone in this. You were just the only one being watched." That sat with me. Karen never stared at the cousins or piled their plates or leaned across the table to make sure sure they finished. Only me, because I was the one she had chosen to prove herself through, and Quintillion made sure I passed every time. Saturday morning she called me, sweet and smooth. I am making your favorite tonight, the fish with the sweet glaze, the one you always ask for seconds of. My stomach turned from memory, not hunger. I had never once asked for seconds of anything that woman made. She had rewritten every meal we ever shared into a story where I was her greatest admirer, and now she was calling to offer it as a gift. I kept my voice even and said I was looking forward to it. When I hung up, Jillian looked at me from across the room and said, "That woman is cooking a trap." I said, "I know, but this time I am not the one walking into it." We arrived at 5. The table was set for 12. Karen was somewhere in back, laughing, giving orders about the serving dishes, sounding like a woman who had already won. Quintillion met us at the door in a good shirt. "Finally, we can put all this nonsense behind us," I said. "Absolutely." Marcella was already seated, back straight, waiting. When I sat down across from her, she caught my eye and gave one small nod. Karen carried the dishes out herself, one by one, like she was presenting awards. The fish first, glaze shining under the light. Then the rice, and even from my seat I could see salt crystals thick as frost on the surface. Then the bread, black at the edges, the kind of burnt you smell before you taste. She stood at the head of the table with her hands on her chair, beaming at all 12 of us. "Everybody sit, eat, enjoy." Then her eyes found me and locked on, and she smiled that smile that was not a smile but a command. "You first, sweetheart. Go on. You love this dish." I kept my hands in my lap. My voice came out calm. "I think everyone should eat together tonight, all at the same time." She blinked, a flicker of confusion, because that was not my line, and she was stuck, because she could not look at 12 people and say no. She eats first, without it sounding like exactly what it was. She widened her smile. "Of course. Everyone, please." For the first time at that table, I was the one watching. A cousin near the end cut a piece of fish, put it in her mouth, and her whole face tightened. That fast squeeze around the eyes your body does when it says no. She set her fork down and reached for water. Next to her, a man got 2 chews into the rice before his hand shot out for his glass, eyes watering. I watched face after face go through what I had gone through for years, and for the first time nobody was choosing to swallow. Then Marcella moved. She lifted her fork slowly, deliberately, so everyone could see. She took a full bite of rice, not a taste, a real bite, chewed with her eyes open, and swallowed. Then she said, loud enough for the whole table, "Karen, this rice has so much salt I can feel it in my teeth." Every fork stopped. Karen laughed, short and sharp, a wall going up. "You are being dramatic." But her voice was too high and her smile was too tight. Another cousin set her napkin down. "No, Marcella is right. I cannot eat this. It burns." Then a man across the table raised his fork and held it in the air with a piece of fish on it, and the flesh in the middle was translucent. Not pink, translucent. "The fish is raw. Look." He turned it so both sides could see. Karen's smile cracked. "You are all cutting it wrong. It is cooked perfectly." Quintillion stood, chair scraping. "That is enough. My mother worked 2 days on this meal." It was the voice that had ended every conversation in my life for years. Marcella did not blink. "Then your mother should taste it herself." The room went silent. Karen's knuckles were pale on the edge of the table. "I do not need to taste it. I made it." Marcella reached across, picked up Karen's own untouched plate, and set it in front of her. "You made your daughter-in-law eat every bite for years. You watched her do it. You made her say it was delicious. So eat it. Show us." Karen's eyes went to her son, that look that said, "Handle this." Quintillion opened his mouth. Marcella was faster. "Sit down. You made your wife eat cold raw chicken and she got sick. You do not get to talk right now." 2 cousins gasped. One put a hand over her mouth. The other looked at me with wide eyes, and I watched the pieces click into place. All those dinners. All those times I cleaned my plate and called it the best thing I had ever eaten. Quintillion sat down like someone had cut the strings holding him up. Karen was alone. No son to intervene. No daughter-in-law to perform for her. Nothing left to hide behind. She picked up her fork. Her hand shook so badly I could see it trembling in the air. Maybe it was pride. Maybe she needed to prove us all wrong one final time. She scooped a bite of the fish, the one she had made for me, and put it in her mouth. She chewed once, just once, and her face changed, her jaw slowing, her whole expression sliding from performance into truth. She reached for her napkin and spit the food into it, right there, in front of everyone, the same way 100 strangers had. Marcella said, quiet and clear, "That is what your daughter-in-law has been swallowing for years with a smile, because your son told her she had to." Karen started crying, but not the loud crying from after the party, the kind built to pull people in. This was small and soundless, her shoulders folding. I knew that crying, because I had done it myself. It is the crying you do when you finally admit something you spent a long time pretending not to know. She had always known. I waited to feel triumphant, and it never came. It just felt sad and tired and true. I said, "I never hated you, Karen. I just wanted to stop being sick." Then I turned to Quintillion, who looked smaller than I had ever seen him. "And I wanted you to care more about my health than your mother's feelings. You never did." He did not look up. He had nothing, because the whole family had just watched his mother spit out the food he had forced down my throat for years, and every lie he ever told about my weak stomach was sitting on the table beside the raw fish and the burnt bread. Marcella looked around at every face in that room. Nobody in this family is pretending anymore. Karen had no comeback. No line about how I was not raised with good food. Nothing. I stood up. My plate was still full, exactly the way it had been set down. I did not clean it. I did not say thank you. I took Jillian's arm and we walked out together, down the porch steps into the cool evening air. I left my plate full for the first time in years, and it was the best meal I never ate.